Oh, like I feel today.
Hello, everyone. Hello. There are nameplates on the screen, and you should not pay attention to them because those are not the people that you are looking for. I'm taking their nameplates off as we speak because that is not them. And where's me? Yeah, I'm going to take my nameplate off as well. Hello, everyone. How are you? Welcome to the Season 5 opener of City of Light and Shadow, a Fate French Resistance campaign. And Season 5 has a special episode to start us off. And in order to do this very special episode, I have some amazing guests here to be with you today, and I am very, very honored that they said yes, and I'm very excited they said yes for what will be, I'm certain, a very, very intense episode where we may walk into alternate history at the end of this episode, and whatever happens will have a great impact on our players, many of whom are in chat right now to find out what will happen to them. So, I would like to, I would like to introduce each person here, and then we can sort of jump into this show. If you've not seen this show before, by the way, this uses Fate Condensed. It's a gritty spy game with members of the French Resistance, people who are fighting against fascism and Nazism in early in the war. We're in 1942 right now, and the United States has just come in, and we follow a number of sort of ragtag protagonists, all with a lot of different things going on in their lives, who have done a lot of work. And Season 5 kicks us off in a new spot where we're going to find out the consequences of some of their actions. So let's introduce our special cast, those who are going to help us come to a very important decision about what to do. So first off, me, I'm troopersjp. I am the GM for this madness. Although for today I'll be, background GMing, but also portraying the Brigadier William Lethbridge Holmes, who is representing the British War Office and a bit of a convener of this meeting to find out what we should do with the information, which I will tell you about in a moment. At least the set of our situation. But it seems, well, I suppose I can tell you now, it seems as if a team of agents that belong to the SOE, the Special Operations Executive, which is, the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, isn't it? They are a secret organization that whose job is to do sabotage, assassinations, and reconnaissance in occupied territories, and they train and support, all sorts of local resistance as well as bring people in. The people who work for the SOE are civilians, sometimes they're military people, but anyone. Your grandmother, if she has the skills needed, will be put through training and sent into occupied territory and, perhaps make a change. And these agents work for the SOE, and so we have a representative of the SOE here at this meeting. And that representative is played by the amazing Anna Geeks, who is a mentor, has been a mentor to many streamers actually, and I don't know what the streaming world would be like if she hadn't been here letting people know how to use technology and what's going on for years and years and years. So, Anna, tell us who you are, and what you're up to, and who are you playing today?
Every single one of you would have figured it out without me.
I don't know. But I don't know. I think we'd have like.
But it wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't be the
It wouldn't be
same.
the same.
Like I entered in the online tabletop sphere because of you. Like I wouldn't be on Table Story. I wouldn't be doing any
All
of
right,
that.
all
if it
right.
weren't for
Make
you,
me
so.
cry later.
Okay. All right.
I am Anna Geeks. I used to be a full-time variety broadcaster, and then I took a pandemic to the knee, I guess. These days, I'm just kind of trying to keep on keeping on.
And who
Still
are you
stream
playing?
here and there, hoping to get back to baking.
Oh, good. Oh,
Yeah.
you're making streams.
That's it.
But who are you playing?
Oh, I'm sorry. I am playing Vera Atkins, who was actually a real woman in history who was amazing. Absolutely amazing. So definitely look up Vera Atkins later.
Yes. And she's in charge of the French section of the SOE. So she'll be here for
Yes.
this. We also have, in this very difficult time, one of the special relationship, good allies, good friends. We have my good friend, David, who will be playing somebody representing the OSS, which is the precursor to the CIA. The CIA does not yet exist. It's the OSS, and the OSS got a lot of its training from the SOE and learned a lot of its techniques from them. And so the United States has just entered into the war just 2 months earlier, and they have some interest in finding out what's going on and where they're going. And so, David, can you tell us who you are and who you are playing?
Okay. My name is David Kaminsky, and I am a professor of music. So I know troopersjp from from his other life. Although I work in California instead of the East Coast. And I will be playing Agent Cal Johnson of the OSS, representing a country, the United States, that has recently entered the theater of operations in Europe.
What do they say? The Americans are oversexed, overpaid, and over there. Like there's like, and over here, there was like, people are like a little bit concerned about all the Americans just showing up. Although they are also concerned that you didn't show. There's tensions going on.
I mean, what can we do?
What can we do?
We contribute what we can, and then that's what we do. Yeah.
Money.
Oh yeah.
Money. Yeah. We also have looks like we have one other person who'll be coming in shortly, which I'm very excited about. I'm sending that message. We also have one of our next members of this sort of large group of people to discuss these politics is Simon, Wandering DM, who will be representing the de Gaulle's French government in exile. Simon, who are you? Tell us who you are and who you are playing.
Sure, I'm Simon, otherwise known as Wandering DM on Twitch and Twitter. I am a narrative designer by day and also by night, all the time.
I can attest to this. We co-work.
And and I'm playing tonight Jean-Marc Dubuisson, a young French radical who joined with de Gaulle basically in early 1940s and fighting with the resistance ever since.
Mm-hmm. And is currently in London, where the rest of us are, in order to, and will be attending for de Gaulle. We have one other person coming in who will be representing the British War Office, who is coming into the Zoom shortly. But before we introduce that person who's on their way, we have somebody very special who's also been asked to attend this meeting. Everyone else at this meeting are sort of very important people who are quite high ranking and have the ears of important people. And one person who has joined us is joined by our dear Pumpkinberry, who is an officer, but is not a super high-ranking person in charge of everything, but is the one person out of all the people here who knows the agents who got this intel best, because she is the godmother, i.e. the person on the other end of the radio who is there waiting to hear and decrypt that Morse code and decode it and find out exactly what is happening and where. And so if there's one person who knows these agents best, it is agent codenamed Ophelia. Pumpkinberry, who are you and who are you playing?
Yes, hi, I am Pumpkinberry. I love Trooper, I love tabletop, and I'm very excited to be here. I'm reprising the role of Ophelia from a couple of seasons ago, and I'm nervous because the love of my life, whom I've given a ring to, is one of the agents who might be is going to be talked about in this meeting here. So
yes,
I feel like I have two motives right now.
I hope that's the case for everyone.
Yeah.
that
Stakes are high.
Stakes are high. Also, in the perfect timing, we have our next guest, our last guest, who will be representing the British State Department. Another good friend of mine, somebody that I was playing Call of Cthulhu with in the 1980s. My dear Michael. Michael, could you introduce who you are? And you can make up the name for your character who is representing the War Office. Who you are representing today?
Oh, well, I'm Air Commodore Tomkins, representing the War Office. Specifically an RAF officer, but the War Office covers all the branches. So. And we're here to answer questions about military topics and to bring the views of the War Office and the Ministry of Defense to this conference. So.
Excellent. And so, with that, let us set the scene. It is a conference room with a large conference table in a basement somewhere in London. Exactly where, you all don't need to know. We all know, but you civilians don't need to know where we're having our very, very secret conference, somewhere deep in a basement. People have come together to discuss some shocking information. As it turns out, there are some agents that are highly placed. Their names, their identities, has not been shared to everyone at this table, although some people know. Some people who should not know them do know them. Actually, most people here actually know them, because either you're British and therefore you know them, or you're an American who knows some people who are in this team, so you know their names, or you're French and you were on the ground and so you also know their names. So it turns out the agents are known to everyone here, even though they're very secret and maybe not everyone should know their names, but it happens sometimes. It does. What you know is that they're a group of agents that was originally led by an American criminal who had been sort of forced into this. And they were based out of Paris, fairly doing sort of undercover work. But over the course of events, they have basically been using more or less their own identities as their numbers have shifted. Currently, one of them is, they're doing very difficult double agent work. One of them is currently a director for the propaganda department in France and is working on a propaganda film, a big musical, and is currently embedded in the ministry of the propaganda department over there in occupied France. Married to a woman who is using her real name, who has a history of a connection to German chemists, although she herself had been or is connected to German military intelligence as a double agent. The person who is currently working is posing as a Gestapo officer also as a double agent. So they are both in precarious positions. They've been joined by a fairly famous German opera singer, Frieda Engel. I don't know if you know her. She was going to be smuggled out of Germany, but it turns out she decided to stay and work with them, mostly because, access to this conference came through her. Her husband was basically the logistics planner for this conference. He was the one who was involved in getting the catering and organizing things. And as his wife, she actually did the organization of the catering, which allowed them to bring in the other agents to get this recording. The fourth member of this team currently, a major member, is a doctor. Well, actually, he's a prince of Rajasthan from India. Young man, trained, of course. He's an agent of the SOE officially, and as is the team leader, the woman, the former assassin for the German military intelligence. Now, this young man is a prince of Rajasthan as well as a doctor, and we have been giving him his actual persona is quite useful, and he's been given, well, he's been writing lots of anti-British materials in the newspapers. He's been given an in. He now speaks on the radio against the British Empire. He's gotten involved with some of the anti-imperial, pro-Indian freedom forces that are allied with the Axis at the moment. We think that he might be able to become an ambassador to Germany of some sort for this sort of these, well, people who do not appreciate the glory of the British Empire. But he is also now very tied in with German diplomatic circles. So this is the team that was able to get into the Wannsee conference and make a recording that we have before us. It must be noted that they were obviously present or around. So they went last month to a conference room, and, well, they recorded a meeting of some of the most important officials in the Nazi government, Heydrich and Eichmann. They were planning, well, they were discussing about murdering 11 million people. It seems as if Adolf Hitler and his government has a plan to murder every single Jewish person in all of Europe. And this meeting that we have a recording of is their planning session, where they are discussing logistics of how to do it most efficiently. There's some vagueness about where and when, but the Polish government in exile has been speaking in great detail for quite some time they've been ringing the alarm. They have given the locations of a number of these camps, Auschwitz, more of them, where they say that that people are being murdered with gas. This does align with some intel that has been given from some of these agents about the Tiergarten 4 program, where they're murdering children and people they find to be physically or mentally disabled in a euthanasia program. And it seems if they're taking that program and they're going to make it larger. Yes. Now, what I will say is that there's been some rumors about this happening so far, but no one has believed it. No one could have imagined that these sorts of things could happen. And even though there have been a few stories here and there, none of the allies have been particularly, or the press has believed it. No one has really moved on this. But these tapes might change people's minds, especially perhaps the Soviet Union. That said, releasing these tapes would burn these agents. So we are all here today to discuss what we think should be done with these tapes. As the head of the SOE, where these agents are based, Agent Atkins, I thought I would open it up to you to see if you have any thoughts or information you would like to give us. Your insight.
These agents are absolutely exceptional. If we release this recording as it is, they will end up dead. And we cannot allow that to happen. The information provided here is useful without turning it into propaganda that may or may not serve any useful purpose.
I see. What does, well, what do the Americans have to say about this? Agent Johnson?
Well, I'm in agreement generally that I'm not sure that the propaganda value of the material is all that useful. But I wonder if there are other ways to release it without endangering the agents. Can we not pin it on somebody else who's there? Perhaps this Eichmann fellow seems not an ideologue, a secretary. Is there a way to perhaps tell a story that he's had a change of heart, something along those lines?
If I may, it is very obvious as to it could only have come really from our agents. We could try pinning it, but I think that wouldn't, no, I don't think that's possible.
What does France say about this?
I agree with Miss Atkins. There is no need to sacrifice these people on the ground who are fighting the good fight, if I can say so. But I do have some, how you say, reservations about this group of agents. You say they are exceptional, but I feel like they could be better. They could do more if they were properly encadrés. They were properly supervised.
What are you saying?
I'm just saying that from what I heard of this intel that they've gathered, they are able to do much on their own. And I do believe that Monsieur de Gaulle also shares my thoughts on this, that if they were to sort of align with the government in exile, then we would be able to provide them with a lot of resources, and we'd also have a way to I don't want to say a figurehead, but it's almost what it would be. I mean, they are.
With all due respect, Mr. Duboisson, the agents that the SOE sends into France regularly collaborate with French resistance members. They are incredibly adept, well-trained, resourceful. And just because the esteemed Monsieur de Gaulle would prefer they be under his umbrella does not inherently provide them with any more resources than mere collaboration that we are already perfectly happy and capable of doing.
If I may, Mr. Dupoisson, it seems that you might be more familiar with the agents in question and their collaboration with the French resistance, if there were any connection at all between de Gaulle and that French resistance in the first place.
we have some connections, but mostly those that fight at the moment are communists, and they are not really organized. They are like children's with fireworks.
I'm no fan of the communists myself, but if there's anything that I could accuse them of being, it's not disorganized.
Commander Thompson, you are representing UDLR capabilities and logistics. What are your thoughts on this?
The areas that have been identified in eastern Poland are currently far beyond the range of any current British bombers to operate. And our fighter escorts currently can only operate as far east as Belgium. If I could indicate this map, this is where Michael says, do we have our screen share turned on?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Although if you screen share, that'll pop on our main screen. So let me put this.
Well, you get to see the lovely map.
Yes. I can
we have a map here. This shows as of early 1942, as of now. You can see British bases in southeastern England. The green represents
one moment as I give you one moment.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a slightly different screen so that everyone can see that.
Some sergeant is unrolling the map.
As we speak, I'm going to want this.
Getting you the little pointing stick.
Yes.
Where's my pointing stick?
Yes. And I'm going to want this. I believe that. And let me a little bit of no. If you will share again, I'll be able to cut properly.
There we are.
If you do not mind.
I see everybody is a vertical row of faces on the right there. So
yes, and in 2 seconds, I will get this for you. Yes, right here.
Okay. The blue line is where we can currently conduct bombing operations. The red blotches represent areas that have been struck. The green line is the range of Spitfire escorts, which are the only available escorts currently. As you notice, that only covers the northern French coast and Belgium and the Netherlands. The red line represents what the Americans have promised us for the spring of next year once they have their Thunderbolt fighter aircraft available, and once they begin their own daylight bombing operations. There's also the possibility, as you notice there, from long-range operations are being planned from Cairo or other places in the Near East towards Romania at this point, being large oil fields there, but other areas within that zone. However, the furthest a strike could be made currently is not even as far as Warsaw. And all the camps that we've been, I've only been given a general indication, but they're all east of Warsaw. There have been negotiations, but they've been fruitless so far about allowing the Soviet Union or getting the Soviet Union to allow us to base aircraft in the Soviet Union for bombing against the Axis. That has come to nothing yet. There's some conferences planned for later this year that might get something, but the Soviet Union is currently very distracted. The battle for Moscow has just ended, and there are large German offensive along the Volga and Don River basins that are going to be coming up very soon.
Well, Commander,
So they have had, yes.
Commander, my understanding is that the Germans were taking a licking over there on the Eastern Front. Has it turned?
They certainly are, but so is the Soviet Union. They're all taking it. It's a terrible war. At the moment, though, the German forces are only 100 or 200 kilometers from Moscow. They were driven back by massive loss of life by the Soviet army. They had a short counteroffensive in January, but the Germans are shifting many divisions. Millions of men are being sent to the Eastern Front. It's the likelihood of basing aircraft in Russia, in the Soviet Union, is low. And if you notice, the range would be sufficient, but only if the front stabilizes where it is. So, but there's currently no chance of any sort of bombing from Soviet territory. The other issue is that we must make bombing operations unescorted. In order to do so with any chance of not losing our entire Air Force immediately, this has to be done at night. Night bombing is very inaccurate. Our Wellington and Blenheim bombers attack city-sized targets. They could attack, perhaps, if they had the range, a concentration camp, but the bombs would drop over miles and miles of territory. You can't attack a railway line or a particular building with any chance of not destroying the whole camp, potentially. There have been calls. Yeah, there have been calls to attack various governments in exile have called for attacks on particular targets within their territories. The position of the Secretary for War has been that military operations will not be conducted for the aid of refugees or humanitarian purposes.
Yes.
That's where it stands there.
Let us take this map off the screen for a moment so we can come back to our larger bit. Yes. Now, you're saying that the War Office is not in favor of bombing. We don't have the capability. Now, will the Americans come through and get us those planes? Even that won't get us to Poland.
Well, it's quite possible. Our own Lancaster bombers, which are being developed, will have the range to reach targets in some parts of Poland. However, it's really the escort fighters that are important. Without escort fighters, you can't do daylight bombing. Without daylight bombing, you can't hit a precision target. So until long-range escort fighters are available, and the Americans are promising the sun and the moon in that regard, but it will be 1944, really, before that is available. Even the
2
Thunderbolts,
years from now.
Yes, well, that is the nature of war. I'm afraid it's the capabilities of aircraft and aerial warfare currently are an order of magnitude greater than they were just, say, 8 or 10 years ago. And war is driving these achievements and capabilities faster and faster, but nothing is instantaneous. With the Americans have only come into the war 2 months ago.
Yes.
They took a great blow. They're working on sending a one-way bomber mission to Tokyo. Michael, I've forgotten the date of the Tokyo raid, but early 42. So the chance of not losing all of your bombers for a daytime raid on camps, it's something that the Minister of War will never countenance. You would lose, send 100 planes in daytime, lose 80 of them. We had massive daytime raids on some German naval ports early in our air campaign in 1940 and 41. The losses on each of these raids were around 75% of the aircraft, which is unacceptable if you're going to do them more than once.
I'm sorry, gentlemen.
Yes.
Mr. Tomkins, I just can't stay silent. You are talking about this readiness at bombing probably camps. This isn't a whole other story altogether. But do you not realize that with the intel that we have, we know that by the time you are ready to bomb, there will be millions dead.
This is true.
There have been hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of casualties already in those civilian casualties in the war. Yes, we cannot rationally attack camps in eastern Poland. If Mr. Stalin agreed to help and had the resources, then perhaps we could do so as early as the fall of this year. But until he agrees, and that agreement will be difficult to obtain, there's no foreseeable now. Parachuting an agent into Poland, yes. Dropping agents or things, that's you find a particular plane that can fly unescorted and fast and high. That has been done, as the SOE no doubt knows. But bombing raids are essentially, and another issue is railway tracks can be repaired. We've discovered that if you bomb a regular railway line, you bomb it on Friday, it's repaired on Monday. The destruction of rail infrastructure, marshalling yards, but even more importantly, the destruction of coal fields. German industry depends on coal. The Ruhr Valley produces steel and coal. That is what we're bombing largely, along with more tactical targets. If we can choke Germany's supplies of coal, they won't be able to run their trains, and then they won't be able to carry people off to these camps. So.
Agent Johnson, do you think the Americans will be able to get us escort planes?
Well, that is my understanding. This is not my field of expertise or authority, but
Yes.
but I have no reason to doubt it. The boss is honest about these sorts of things.
They've certainly promised it to our leadership, to the Prime Minister and the Minister for War have been promised by Americans very effective aircraft, but nothing really before. Nothing can operate over Europe for the summer of 1943.
If I may, I now of course we were very new to this particular theater of operations as the Americans, but my feeling is that, and my sense from the minutes of the meeting that we heard, is that the Germans have no intention of stopping with their assault on the Jewish people at their current borders. Their goal is world domination. Yes. And if we want to save the Jews that we can, the way that we do that is by prosecuting the end of this war as quickly and as effectively as possible, and not by essentially making the problems that the Germans are creating for themselves with this plan, and making those into our problems instead of their problem. From my perspective, now this may sound cold, but every train that carries a Jew to a camp is a train that doesn't carry a German soldier to the front. Am I wrong in that calculus?
I believe that is an essentially correct calculus. Yes, it obviously there are many trains for many purposes, but yes, the winning the war in Europe is the way to save the most people. Winning it sooner, the sooner you win the war, the sooner the camps will be destroyed. Any bombing of camps will. Well, go ahead.
So what then? We just don't do anything with this intel, and we let millions of people get killed while you wait for your toy planes to be ready to bomb the Ruhr Valley and then choke them out of their supply lines.
We are bombing the Ruhr Valley now. Those are within range. They're being bombed multiple times a week currently. Most of our current operations, there are the German naval forces along the coast of France and Holland and Belgium and Germany are in some ways the biggest threat to England now, because the submarine warfare in the Atlantic has now spread to all American ships. Americans were neutral until 2 months ago. Now there are no neutral ships bringing supplies to England. They're all targets for the U-boats. We have been bombing every port, every submarine pen, every shipyard that is within range of our bombers. We have also been bombing military inland targets of an industrial nature, largely because industrial nature in cities, because that's what we can hit.
But what do we do with what we have here?
With this tape? I cannot tell you that. I do know, I have seen a paper, the Jewish Agency, which is a Zionist organization in Palestine, has issued a statement that they do not wish to see any bombing conducted on labor camps, on camps where Jews are gathered by the Germans.
Yeah, no, of course, you would be bombing civilians.
But these are not labor camps.
Well, we know that from this tape you have obtained. Yes, we know that. The Jewish Agency does not know that. So if they were to hear of this tape, they would, I imagine, call for the destruction of these camps. I can't speak for them, but
so my understanding.
Go ahead.
My apologies. My understanding, Dupoisson, what you are interested in doing is, my main impression is that you are jockeying for position for de Gaulle, and that is your indignation currently. Do you have a plan that you consider better than what has been put forth so far?
I am not privy to everything that Monsieur de Gaulle does, unfortunately for me. But what I do know is that we are placing some very talented agents in place and mustering an actual movement in France. We have, give us weeks, give us a few months, don't give us two years. We don't need 2 years. A few months is all we need to have an organized force here that can undermine any German activity in occupied France. If you say that every train that brings a Jewish person to a camp does not bring a soldier to the front, and if the rails can be repaired, well, then why don't we just blow up the trains? Sabotage the what you call them, those big train stations, like the hangars.
And now this is in the purview of the SOE.
It is neither solution that has been presented will win the war by itself. The job of the SOE, the job of the resistance, is to be the sand in the gears, to buy that 2 years for those bombers to be ready and their escorts. That is our job. We make precision strikes to eliminate high-value targets that now, with this recording, we now have a few more.
Yeah. And I agree that is, in my humble opinion, that is what we do with this recording. That is what we do with this information. We utilize it, but we have no guarantee that if we were to release it, it wouldn't just be dismissed immediately as more atrocity propaganda.
Oh, that I agree. Releasing it would be a mistake. It's just not doing anything with it feels like it's a moral failing.
My understanding, Monsieur Dubuisson, I'm sure you have heard about this, but the agents, the SOE agents, and some refugees as well, have noted that a large number of French Jewish citizens, as well as French communists, have all been rounded up and are held in transit camps. They were going to be sent out east, which, looking at this recording, indicates that they probably would have been sent to one of these death camps. The agents were able to sabotage and mess with the logistics enough that those French citizens, when actually some of them are not French, are still being held in these camps and not yet have been able to be sent east. But they cannot be they will eventually be sent east, these French citizens. So this is an issue that, well, really impacts, well, all of Europe, really, especially all the places that are currently occupied. What I'm trying to say is not just Polish, Soviet or communist people who are going to be killed. People are being killed and rounded up from in Belgium and in France and, well, Western Europe.
I do not wish to see any of them murdered.
Yes.
Our special operations squadrons, which work with the SOE, have gotten some requests, which I believe I can share with this group. Just since several of these requests were turned down, and some of them have been taken up. We drop weapons to the resistance in France and in other places where there is an organized resistance, in Belgium and the Netherlands. We drop agents. There were plans to drop weapons onto camps. This was before the existence of these death camps was known, but there are other transit camps and concentration camps. And there was a call, I consider it frankly insane, to drop on basically a one-way mission, both for the aircraft and for the troops, the Polish parachute brigade into a Polish death camp, basically.
Logistically, that would be madness, wouldn't it?
It would be. You would lose all the aircraft, all the air crew, and all the Poles. They would fight a battle, no doubt, and they're very brave men, but say 2,000 men in the middle of Nazi-occupied Poland, they would all be dead within a week. I mean, maybe they could hand weapons to camp people, but it would be crushed.
It seems to me that's what we have gone for.
Yes, it would be a symbol, no doubt, but it would be a loss of men who could be better used to win the war rather than a symbol. So
let me bring up another
there
element
have been efforts
that I would love all of your input on, and especially perhaps you, Officer Asher. We have heard from MI6, who are not presently at this meeting, that they have some opportunities that they have. No offense, Commander Tomkins, Commodore Thompson. The MI6 has been somewhat displeased with. Well, there might be a few people here who might be offended by this, but by governmental responses of the last few years to Nazi incursions into other countries. They had a very highly placed and highly respected German officer who contacted them with request that if France and England declared war on Germany, we were given advance notice that Germany would move towards Czechoslovakia, the Sudetenland, and that if we declared war, he was all in place to start a coup to overturn Hitler. And of course, as we know, we did not declare war at that time. This officer, who is in contact with MI6, very important officer, I must say, and who has had some, well, not him directly, but my understanding is that some of his conspirators have had some sort of connection with this group here on the ground that the SOE is working with. He has been agitating for us to do something that might help discredit Hitler and that regime so that he might be able to, well, instigate this coup again. Unfortunately, he's lost some of his infrastructure and he's trying to rebuild at the moment. But might this information be enough to instigate? I must say, our understanding is that a number of German people have protested once this whole euthanasia program was stopped because it leaked, and German citizens, including German clergymen, protested the murder of children as part of a euthanasia program once that information leaked, and that program was stopped. Would leaking this information be enough to help discredit or destabilize so that our German war hero might be able to push forward some sort of overthrow of the government there?
I believe the recording itself can answer that question. The complete lack of any of these ministers of government at this meeting to have any concerns other than expediency tells us the overall sentiment of anyone who dares speak in the German people.
Yes, it is a gamble. If it had only been another group of people that people like more, perhaps.
Protests would need to be coupled with military. If it's a military coup, it has to be an effective. Well, an ineffective one would help the Allied cause, but an effective one would be more useful. Having, a German general and his 50 men, that's not a coup. That's just a bad propaganda moment for the German high command. I cannot speak to, and obviously SOE knows, and MI6 know far than I would, than the Air Ministry or the Minister for War would ever know about the opportunities to conduct these sorts of things within the German government. It's not our field. So,
what about the Soviets? You said they're not giving us airspace. If they knew about this, would they be perhaps moved to be more cooperative? They've not been allowing Jewish refugees into their borders. Would this information change their minds, do you think?
They've been busy killing Polish prisoners that they took. I don't believe this is going to cause an excess of sympathy in Moscow. I'm sure the Soviet Union hates the fascists with a burning hatred. This isn't going to make them hate the Germans more, but I'm sure they will trumpet it from every organ, radio, and press they can get, but it's not going to make them more. Their concern currently is defeating the Germans. They are not going to. They have similar issues that we do. We are hoping that we can do something someday by, say, 1944. I don't believe the Soviet Union will lift a finger for anybody, Jewish or otherwise, in a camp in occupied Europe until they're at the gates of these camps. They will, and that is, it is as a logic, it is understandable. Their view is that ending the war ends the terrible tyranny and fascist domination and the destruction of the peoples of Europe.
Section Commander Asher, and also, Leader Atkins, your agents, and my understanding, Agent Ophelia, you know their capabilities quite well as well. My understanding from the records is that they have already committed some acts of assassination, this group. My understanding, assassinated the head of German military intelligence for occupied France, and are quite capable of that sort of thing. Might they be used to try to assassinate maybe this Heydrich or Eichmann or perhaps even Himmler, Goering? If they have access, perhaps they could do some sort of suicide bomb or something, and that might do something. What do you think?
With respect, I think that that would be not a waste of their talents, but I think they can do a lot of good without immediately throwing them to suicide bomb. They have done a lot of work thus far, getting us the information that we need, and doing so much more than that, of which I'm not at liberty to discuss. But they are extremely capable and talented, and able to do so much more than drive a bomb into a building.
The War Office agrees with you in that. We had not heard of these agents before, since they're obviously very secret. Only a few people have been told. But it would seem that wasting their capabilities, anything except for an extremely major coup d'etat or something, would be foolish. They're obviously very highly placed. You've described some of them as far as their situation, and we can't speak for MI6 or SOE, but
I hesitate to use the word waste because there are 11 million lives
Yes,
at stake and much
we are
more. But I do
every,
feel like they can do so much more than.
every day thousands of Allied soldiers are killed on the front, and every night hundreds of British airmen are killed in combat over occupied Europe. But
And
The perennial
Anybody-
millions of
question
Jews.
is
Yes,
how many
yes.
can be avoided?
yes, anyone well trained can shoot a gun or carry a bomb. These agents have special skills that would be probably less useful to employ them in stabbing Hitler.
Yeah, and they've
As
done so
satisfying
much.
as that would be.
Yeah,
So,
they've done so much groundwork thus far. They have contacts. They have. It would be a waste of everything they've built so far.
I agree.
Well, to be devil's advocate, perhaps be a bit brutal, what's the point of making these contacts if we don't use them? If they're placed so they can get access to some of these high-ranking Nazi officials, then why don't we use that?
We are and have been and will continue to do so.
Exactly. so.
Information. The nature of what, if they have contacts in the intelligence community, information about what the Germans know about our cryptographic systems or our plans for where invasions will occur. If these bits of information fall into the hands of these highly placed agents, they tell us, and we go, "Oh, they've learned about our plan to invade Italy or whatever." These are useful things to know.
Yeah, and just to use an example, one of our agents is currently working on a propaganda film right now, and will be able to get close to a high-value target at the premiere. So our agents are doing things, and they are working, and they have been, and they will continue to do so.
The same type of propaganda they've helped put up against de Gaulle, I guess.
Well,
Because they are very good at what they do. I will grant you that. But also, some of their actions are, how to say, against the betterment of La France.
For
I
you.
mean,
Yes. But we're not here for just France.
yes,
We're here for everyone.
yes. I am.
And on the
Hence
surface,
why
it
I
may
am
look
here.
like that. I know, but on the surface, it may look like that. But if the end goal is to end the war, then France wins as well.
well, they could also just not undermine the general.
If, for
Burning our
example,
agents or one of our agents not working on the propaganda film is not going to make the film not get made. It will get made with or without them. Having them present allows them to get closer to the people who can make a difference.
Agent Asher, I think he might be referring to. This is the SOE's somewhat close working relationship with some of the communist resistance members in Paris.
we work with who we need to work with to get the job done.
Then
And while
work
we
with
may
us.
have distaste for some of our allies, we get the job done. Were it not for those agents, were it not for this film, we would not have this recording. We wouldn't be here today. It is missions like that, it is the hard decisions like that one, the sacrifices that we need to make, which will win this war. And hopefully keep those 11 million people on that list, as many of them as possible, alive.
And I am willing to help in any way I can. And I know that the good general is also willing to help. The problem is we are excluded from about just every meeting, every piece of intelligence that we can get. I mean, I am very grateful to be here right now. But there has been other secret meetings like this before, and the goal was never notified. We would help, and we know we can, but instead we are being undermined by your very agents who use other members of the resistance other patriots to just slide the general's name in the mud or something like that?
No one's purposely insulting de Gaulle, except perhaps the Americans. But if the communists are on the ground, and if they have, well, not to insult de Gaulle, who is, of course, all of us here in England are very respectful of him and his work here. But to be fair, at the moment, the communists have a large number of very young and active and passionate people who are willing to, well, get on the ground right now and well, cause some trouble. And they are shock troops that we have access to. I personally am not a great fan of communists. Don't like Reds and all of that, but they're on the ground at the moment, and, well, de Gaulle is here with us.
The problem is not them being communists, it's them being almost anarchist. They are against any type of government that could be established for the Republic. I mean,
you seem to think that this is a bigger threat than the Nazis right now.
They're not. They're just you want sand in the gears. Well, right now, they are the one thing that is preventing the sand from getting into the gears. Instead of dropping the sand in specific parts, it's just being sprayed all over, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't.
If I may suggest, perhaps there is a role for de Gaulle in all of this that is not so much guiding the French resistance, which is doing its job all on its own without much of de Gaulle's input, but actually the symbolic purposes that he can be put to acting as a representation of France outside of France.
By the way, I do wish to apologize that de Gaulle's representatives have not been invited to all of these meetings, but surely you must understand that some of these meetings involve highly classified information that de Gaulle may not need to know at this moment.
No, but I'm fairly certain that some of them were about Pétain and how he turned my country into hell.
Yes.
But I'm sorry, Agent Johnson. I think you have hit the head of the nail, as they say. If the general could be legitimized as some sort of a representative of France outside of France.
Are you going back on that thing again? We in the United Kingdom have recognized de Gaulle and his government in exile as legitimate and the official government of France. The Americans have not yet done so. They are still recognizing Pétain as the legitimate government.
They are still recognizing a Nazi puppet as the president. Yeah,
yes.
I'm quite aware.
It would be convenient if Roosevelt, your man, your president, might be convinced to recognize de Gaulle. That would be perhaps.
I can see what I can do. I'm not exactly close with the boss, but I'll see what can be said. But it seems like I'm somewhat confused. I thought this was a meeting about the potential murder of many millions of people, and not about the personal dealings of Charles de Gaulle.
Oh well.
Yes, I apologize. I got carried away. I'm sorry.
So, what do we do with this intel? I feel as if the position of the SOE is not that we do nothing.
Of course not.
So, what can we do? If we cannot do large-scale military maneuvers, is there something? What can we do about this?
the beyond prosecution of a successful and rapid prosecution of the war, the ministry certainly will support SOE in any unorthodox expeditions. These are, I mean, for example, is mentioned the murder of Heydrich or something. If it was made clear that these were retributive in nature, it might give someone pause somewhere.
Well, this Heydrich fellow seems to be the one organizing it, with Eichmann's second. Would taking them out hamper their plans?
I don't know.
I wonder about the potential. Now, of course, the world at large is unaware of this meeting.
Yes,
but there has been information. If I may, the Jews of the world know that this is happening, and there is a discourse among many Jews who aren't getting letters from their relatives in Europe, if I may say.
Yes,
and the Jews of Palestine know that this is happening. I'm wondering if there's any sort of potential value to arm the Jews of Palestine, or to allow the many Jewish refugees who are attempting to flee, to give them some sort of home in exchange for fighting the Nazis, and perhaps fighting the very specific war in Poland.
The Jewish Agency has been approached, and there have been large numbers of Jewish volunteers for the British military, both from the Palestine and from other areas.
Well, but the British government is not particularly excited about sending more Jewish refugees into Palestine. We have just quelled an Arab uprising, a revolt. The Palestinians there are not particularly happy to have all of these refugees moving into their territory. The Americans might find it convenient that we should take in all of these refugees, but that would destabilize that area. I mean, we need the support of the Arabs there. This is a very delicate position, part of the world.
I'm sorry, I don't have my notes. Have the Arabs been fighting the war on our behalf against the Nazis? I don't believe so.
I'm not really.
Well, I imagine the Americans. What is this? What is you made some sort of very strange immigration laws a decade or so ago, where you want to limit all the immigration to some sort of 1890s quotas. You're not taking hardly any refugees at all. I mean, if we want to save some of these people who are about to be murdered, we give them a place to stay, and rather than Palestine, which I think at this moment is far too unstable, you have a very large country with a lot of space. Why don't you let some of these people come and move to your space, your country?
Well, that is, as they say, not my department.
I see.
I don't know where they would come from and through. You cannot. The Germans do not allow emigration. They would have to go through neutral Spain, I presume, and to Portugal.
Yes.
And that would be, if millions of people, who are these people that will be emigrating?
Well, I have to say that just yesterday we have intel coming in that there was a ship carrying Jewish refugees leaving Romania. That ship was sunk by the Soviet Navy.
I've heard of that.
Yes. There have been instances of, well, so many people in France right now have escaped from Germany. We have people coming through all the time in small numbers, but if they had some place to go, someplace perhaps in the New World, my understanding is you have quite a few Jewish people in the United States already. Why don't you just open up your borders a bit more? We in the United Kingdom, of course, cannot do that.
The SOE would certainly be well placed to facilitate getting people out. Getting those refugees out if they had somewhere to go.
Again, I'm more concerned, and I realize that refugees are an issue, but I am more concerned with winning the war, and the proposal that I had put forth was about potentially using Jewish refugees, much as the SOE has used many refugees, to fight the war in Europe, in perhaps exchange for the promise of future settlement in other places. Perhaps the United States, perhaps Palestine, perhaps some combination of these. Perhaps England, France.
These are areas that are far beyond what the War Ministry and the War Office can give any sort of guidance on. I do know that the idea of arming the Jews in Palestine will never occur, and if it did, it would probably prompt a civil war, and the Jews there are currently outnumbered about 5-1 by the local Arabs, including the Jordanian Arabs, who have a reasonably competent British-led army.
I mean,
a civil war there would not be to the benefit of the Jews of Palestine.
we also have a bit of a concern over the civil war that might be happening in India. There are a number of these people who are agitating for, well, it makes no sense really. I don't understand it. Agitating to sort of split apart from the British Empire, which has only done everything in its power to keep India civilized, and trying to sort of break apart and align with the Germans. There must be, I feel as if Germany needs to be discredited a bit more publicly. And is there some way to do that without giving away our sources?
I wonder if there's a way that the British might do less to anger the rest of the world against them to incite people to side with the Nazis.
I see. Who invited the Americans again?
They have their part.
I imagine they do.
I
Although
believe
they
it was
only
you, sir.
just start. Yes, well, it wasn't my choice. It's people above me. Americans, it's so good to see you. Just arrived, haven't you? Yes. Now, where were you as we were fighting this war all by ourselves? And of course, France.
The Americans have been sending a lot of war material to Britain even before they were brought into the war by the attack on their Pacific islands. But the amount of material that's been promised to the Soviet Union is vast, and without that material, Russia would probably be overrun by the fascist armies before the end of this year, and then they would turn their entire resources to North Africa, to the Middle East, and to Britain. So
Bickering about who is fashionably late to the war will not save 11 million lives.
We need America. We need France. We need the Canadians. We need everybody. The Brazilians. So,
If I may,
yes.
for starters, I apologize for my outburst earlier. If the Americans are able still, perhaps, to bring in weaponry, we could, I suppose, free as many people from the transit camps, smuggle them through the south of France until we get to Marseille. Those that want to join the resistance can stay and fight. The others can leave for the New World. My only problem is in Gibraltar. I don't know what the situation is there. Otherwise, we could just go from Marseille to Valencia and then, cross Spain, I guess, or if anyone wants to stay there. I don't know why anyone would want to stay in Spain, of all places. And I'm fairly certain that, well, many of the French Jewish population that was taken prisoner will want to stay and fight. Give them guns, and you're going to have an even bigger
Monsieur Dubuisson, do you have an idea of what scale of refugee movement you're speaking of? Hundreds of people? Tens of thousands of people?
We know that there are a few thousand people currently in those transit camps at the moment.
Yes.
Because moving the Mediterranean is filled with Italian and German submarines, Italian and German and Vichy French vessels and submarines and aircraft. Moving and neutral vessels are searched very thoroughly, I'm sure. I know that the SOE can sneak people in and out, but filling a ship with several hundred refugees to sneak away, I'm not an expert in these things, but I can't imagine it's easy. So
once again,
I
our
don't
job
know.
is to win a war, and organizing a massive refugee rescue effort is not going to help us with that. But if we can use those refugees and arm them against our enemies, that's another matter.
Stand in the gears. And I mean, I would love to be able to save all 11 millions of them, but I also have to be realistic. That's not going to happen. But if we free 1,000, then we might have, I don't know, 500 more soldiers fighting for us.
Agreed.
So we know that most of the information and most of the, planning on this is coming through Hydric, right? So we know the specific locations aren't mentioned on the tape, but why don't we use our agents to get that information, get those specific locations? They are in the perfect place in order to garner that information. And then we hit those targets. We hit those places that they are planning on exterminating these people. And we make a plan with that.
Well, if the Polish documentation is to be believed, they have set up these camps already, and we might be able to, if we interface with some of their agents, we might be able to get locations from them. But this leads me to two questions. Our agents in France, who, I must say, one of the greatest difficulties we've had so far is bringing agents into Germany. That has been very difficult because you need someone who's a native German speaker, and who's, it's more difficult. Their bureaucracy is quite heavy. If your agents in the SOE can have successfully gotten into Germany, that means there might be important things we can do if we can send them back in there. They might be able to get us access to things, we have not been able to get access to. And with these people in these transit camps, this idea of arming them may be very interesting. Now, I will say, would France be interested? I understand that the general has been quite successful in convincing, not at first, but now, quite successful at convincing quite a few of the French colonies to align with him rather than Vichy. That might be a place for these refugees to train, to be part of a larger sort of
If you want to turn them into actual soldiers, I'm fairly certain that Canada or l'Algérie would have places for them.
Maybe Algeria?
We have barracks. We have, there is still a certain structure in the colonies. They are not as, let's say, their means might not be as high as what the capitale used to have, as what France had, but still it's a lot. And for anyone who wishes to actually enroll and become a soldier and fight on the front, and I'm fairly certain that
true, if you're not having one,
have problems.
Okay.
Well,
and they could house their families in the meantime.
If de Gaulle would be willing to allow the colonies to be a place for these refugees and perhaps also soldiers, that might be a way to solve some of our problems. My understanding is that the SOE has in place people who are able to fake passports. Now, I'm not quite certain how it was you did this, but my understanding is that you have some sort of connection through this team of yours in some sort of a way, or perhaps that American that was there for a while. They were able to get a few hundred people out, Jews from North Africa in France out. In some means, it was a little bit unclear to me how you all did it, but my understanding is you've got about 400, 500 people smuggled out of Paris. And if you could get 500 people smuggled out of Paris, I'm not quite certain. That wasn't in the records that I got, how you got them out. But if that's possible, that means there might be you have some sort of pipeline that might get more people out under the radar?
I think the issue is a matter of scale. Unfortunately, 500 people is a remarkable amount but it is also a tiny infinitesimal fraction of the 11 million people that are targeted on these lists in this recording.
Well, but surely the Nazis can't actually kill 11 million people. That seems.
I assure you they can, and they are planning to do exactly that.
They've already killed every Jew in Estonia.
Yes.
Which, granted, not the largest town or not the largest country. Excuse me.
They
However,
may be willing. They may be able to kill them all. They certainly want to.
But that also brings us to the idea of arming them all. Relies on the assumption that they are able-bodied, that whether or not they are willing, they're capable. And these are people that we now know are being worked into death,
Starved.
Yes.
Yeah.
Starved. They're literally attempting to work many of these people to death. We now know this. We have proof of this. These are not people that can even lift a gun, never mind aim it and fire it.
And if we're speaking of these large camps that have been established in Poland with thousands or tens of thousands of inhabitants at any one moment, if, say, a force of 100 bombers dropped to, say, 20,000 submachine guns or rifles in that area, 75% of those weapons would end up outside of the campfire. The others would drop into the camp. We'll say they all get armed. Everybody who can, and they're all fit. We'll say they're all fit. Now you have 10,000 people with no central command structure, no radios, and outside is the German military. They will cause quite a catastrophe for the Germans, but they will all be killed. Though of course we know that was the plan, but they will not escape because of this. They will kill many Germans. Is that worth it? They won't escape.
No, but it's the people in the transit camps that I was thinking about. Because yes, it was my understanding that they haven't been worked to death.
No, they're trying to survive somehow a terrible winter with probably not as much food. But
I think there are two things that we need to think about here, and one is that we have this number 11 million, and it's the number of Jews who are presently in a part of the world that the Nazis have power over. Correct?
No, actually, in all of Europe, including numbers in England as well.
I see.
Including non-occupied places.
So currently they are not there. They have no capability of killing 11 million people because they don't have access to those 11 million. So it's a smaller number. Yes. Say 4. I don't know what the number is, but say it's a smaller number. But we first of all, if they actually go through this plan and do the work of murdering all of these people, that will lose them the war. This is they are a formidable foe, but this is the dumbest wartime action that anyone could ever possibly think of. So if we just let them alone to do it, not that I'm saying that we should, but if we did, that in itself would lose them the war. Second of all, I think we need to remember that if we have this, again, it's a smaller number of people that they currently have the power to kill. If they are able to gain more territory, that means that they can. We're not talking about the 4, 5, whatever it is, 6, 11 million people. We're talking about all of the Jews of the world, right? What is that? Or if the worst comes true and they actually are able to win, right? This again brings me back to this idea that our priority, even to save the Jewish people, is to win the war and not to concern ourselves with a refugee effort. Now, I am not opposed to the idea of doing something about these camps. Of course, they're terrible. We need to consider the actual strategic implications of everything that we do.
I think the earlier idea of trying to destroy some of these camps before there's anybody interned in them, I think that is potentially a substantial way to disorganize the enemy.
Disorganize, buy more time, sand in the gas.
By interned, do you mean these large extermination camps? Because as I understand it, they don't intern people there for prolonged periods. They kill
Some
them.
of them are internment camps
Okay.
while they wait to send them to other camps. Some
Yes.
of them are, frankly, slaughter houses.
Yes.
Now, my understanding, of course, is that
But
they
some
haven't.
of them are, in fact, internment camps.
Yes. In addition, they have not yet shipped out the Jewish people from France yet. So this meeting is about setting up the logistics, which means they don't have them all yet in place. My understanding is that they have some of these camps built. We have been able to, well, the SOE actually has been able to smuggle out. Well, this of course does not go beyond here. Connected to this team, but a very important engineer. Another communist, sadly, but a German engineer who was important in building a number of facilities. He was rescued from Germany, and he knows quite a few of these locations and perhaps some of the engineering details that might aid us in this matter. I would note that there are German companies, some of which we might be still dealing with, who are using these camps for slave labor. Might they be pressured in some way or disrupted? That might be something. What about...
We're happy to bomb their factories within the range of our bombers.
Might be something.
But if these factories are in eastern Poland,
Yes.
well, then no.
No.
Do we know of any locations of them in France? Because maybe we could take care of them if they're outside the range of the bombers.
Yes, and, well, sometimes bombing is useful, but sometimes sabotage might be just as effective. As you say, if we could perhaps do something to disrupt these camps or their ability to move people in and out, that might be their ability to organize. If we can get some of the perhaps important movers and shakers there, will most likely be retaliations, but if it becomes difficult for them to operate freely, that might slow things down or make them pause.
I do know, I don't know the details myself, but several major French aviation construction companies have been taken over by German aviation construction companies who continue production of engines and aircraft parts. So there are obviously examples of that. And I know their military vehicle production capacity is now in the control of the Nazis. So
perhaps
something I can share on your topic of refugees. I can tell you that. Have you heard of the Comet Line?
Yes, there was some problems with it, I'm afraid.
Well, the Comet Line is a project run by the SOE and by the RAF to rescue Allied airmen who get shot down over Europe during our raids. And this year, they smuggled about 250 Allied airmen out of occupied Europe back to Allied hands.
Unfortunately,
that gives you an idea of the scale.
Compromise. That line has been compromised recently. And we're trying to rebuild. My understanding is the SOE is working on trying to find people who can rebuild that network.
Yes. But I thought that would give Monsieur Dubuisson some idea of the scale of what's possible. The Comet Line involved, as I understand, thousands of helpers, they're called, the various people who pass these airmen along, eventually usually to Spain or other neutral places to get out. I don't believe you can do better for refugees. As in, here's a poor old Jewish woman from Paris. We shall save her. You're not going to do a lot better with her than with a downed British airman.
Agent Atkins, I would like, or perhaps Agent Johnson, the American agent, codenamed Tango, who is part of this group, he somehow was able to aid in getting 500, 600 North African Jews out of France. and I was never told exactly how he did it. Agent Asher, were you given information on how that happened?
I glance briefly to my superior because I don't think I'm supposed to be talking about this. Then I lie. No, I wasn't.
Well, and this Agent Tango, he's no longer in France, is that correct? Yeah, he's now training agents in the United States. He left.
This was out of character. I have no idea.
No, he split. He and the other American left the country and are back in the United States training people for the OSS.
Yes, he's working with us now.
Well, could you perhaps ask him exactly how it was he was able to get 500 people out of occupied Paris?
I can see if he is willing to speak to me about it.
Here's another graphic, by the way, for a second here. It might be useful to view. Whoop, there we go. That's the various different airman recovery networks. Michael says this is long after the war. No one really, no one person knew all of these all at once. But you can see they go through Paris and down through mostly Spain to Gibraltar or Lisbon. There's some that I see go by, I imagine, fishing boats from Brittany. So, anyway, minor point. So,
well, I would like the Americans perhaps to get a hold of your agent and find out who his contact was, how he was able to get 500 people out of occupied Paris, because if he has some sort of connection, that might be useful for us. If there are 1,000 or so, 2,000 people in these transit camps, and there's some way to get large amounts of people out that he knows about, then perhaps we can rescue those people in those transit camps and perhaps arm them.
He may be interested in engaging the OSS. We can discuss the possibility of engaging the OSS in that operation.
All right. In which case, if the General de Gaulle would allow the people we are able to get out through these means, through the SOE, to train and take refuge in Algeria, say, that could then help us as well.
I believe Algeria is currently occupied by, unfriendly forces.
Oh, I'm sure you have something there in your empire, French empire, that we can place them, perhaps.
Well, I mean, yes, we have other places, definitely that we can. And I cannot speak for the General, but I do believe that he would be amenable to this.
All right. Which leaves, I would recommend perhaps an assassination attempt on Heydrich, perhaps also Eichmann. Now.
You have my blessing.
Well, good. But this leads to, I think, perhaps the most important question about these highly placed agents who can actually get access to German high command. How do we best use them? Heydrich, I don't think, will be in Germany and Berlin, so I don't think they can get him. But they can surely get... Goering travels to Paris all the time. Apparently goes to brothels and whatnot. How about him? Surely, if they have such connections, they could do something.
The real trick is it's less getting the target,
but getting them out.
Less the assassination and more doing so without compromising our agents.
Yes.
That limits us, but still is a very strong, viable path for us to take with these assets.
I would ask Monsieur Dubuisson if you knew that Hermann Goering was going to be in Paris on a given day, a month from now, would RAF Bomber Command leveling Paris to possibly kill Goering be worth it? I think I know your answer.
Yeah, no. My answer is
I
no.
guessed, yes, and that's why we don't do those things.
Why?
Well,
You
that's why
English barbarians.
Oh, no,
God.
no.
I was making it clear the information about the location of, say, Goering in Paris cannot
If
be
Goering
solved
was
with
in Paris,
well,
we could
the
have.
answer
I would
is
shoot
not,
him myself.
Well, there we go. The answer is not military action, not in the sense of bombing, for example. The answer is the SOE or the French resistance.
Urban warfare. I mean,
yes. Well, or an assassination.
Yes.
So
it
cannot be
stray
done.
Bullet can happen. So fast.
Well,
one moment. I had a thought. Speaking of assassinations, first off, I'm personally in favor of assassinating anyone who might be, large enough that it would disrupt them greatly. What about these camps, these extermination camps? Could we, if we can get information about who might be in charge of these camps, perhaps we could, rather than sending a bomb, but sending in assassins to take down their leadership structure. What do you think?
Regrettably, it doesn't take a very talented man to command an extermination camp.
Well said, Agent. That is so. Well,
it might, it will give the Nazis, next time we have to recruit a commandant, we have to lean on him more ferociously. It will cause them to increase security. I imagine currently I have this image of these commandants strutting around these camps, kicking Jews. Well, you get a commandant killed. Now he's strutting around and he's got 20 stormtroopers around him while he kicks Jews. So worthwhile as an assassin. I would trade my life for one, perhaps, but will it win the war? No. Will it save the Jews? Not really. The camp will continue its machinery despite the commandant being killed.
I have a question regarding that. So the intel that we got is basically the foundation of their plan. But there needs to be some sort of communication along the way to tell the director of these camps what to do and who to kill and when. What if we scrambled those communications? What if they were intercepted? What if they were changed? What if you ask to deport an entire camp's worth of prisoners to somewhere that, the SOE or we have established, and that get them all out? Is it a possibility? Can we slow down their machine so much that it becomes completely ineffective?
I think that's possible. I know that we have an agent that is very close to, I would prefer not to say who, but one of Hitler's very close inner circle. And I think that we would be able to get the information that we needed. One of our agents would be able to do it, not burning them permitted.
If we're talking about getting people transferred out of a transit camp before they go to these death camps,
yes,
then we are also potentially talking about people who might be trained and convinced to fight.
Yes. And I mean, I'm all for blowing up train depots and all that too.
Now, I must say, and this is not to, please do not think that I, as someone who's been to Cambridge, am a barbarian. I'm not. And please do not think that I do not care about the people in the East. Of course I do. It's just that it seems to me that we'd be much more successful in trying to save, more Western people. Getting people out of France, I think, would be much easier than trying to get people out of Poland or Czechoslovakia or, the Orient, as it were. So perhaps we should focus...
Should I leave this statement in the notes?
No, that doesn't need to be in the
notes.
Yes. I'm just noting that it seems logistically more practical to try to save people who've not yet been sent out east than spending a lot of resources trying to get people who are already out east.
Let me guess, the general sentiment of the people in Eastern Europe is not that favorable to the British Empire, is it?
No, not necessarily, but
I don't know that the Poles object to the British Empire or the Czechs.
What?
Well, they may be a little cranky now. But...
More specifically, I don't think it's that favorable to the Jews either, and
No.
and I think that might
No,
impact our potential possibility for finding help and collaboration.
Yeah, I was just trying to make a parallel with the fact that, you know, England is
Yes.
willing to help only those who look favorably upon her. But
it's about
those transit
distance.
you are right, Mr. Brigadier, on the fact that logistically speaking, the shorter the distance, the less chances we have of being killed.
Yes.
It's a transit camp in, say, France or Belgium, outside of Germany, really, to the west, is a smaller and within range target of mosquito bombers and fast fighter planes and such. There have been proposals, though they've never come in time yet. There have been occasional proposals by the SOE to, oh no, one of our agents has been captured and it's being held in this town. But by the time it got approved, it was too late to do anything.
I'm sorry
At some
about
point,
that.
we hope to. There are, well, it takes time. The news, unfortunately, the Gestapo don't put us on their circulars for who we're holding where. But the concept of attacking secret police or Gestapo or transit camps to free high-value individual targets has been brought up. It's never been successful yet, mostly because we've never known, oh, it's too late. But if the more general concept of please bomb this Gestapo prison in France anytime this month, that would be more possible. A daylight raid is more, it would have to be done as a daylight raid unless you just want everybody killed. But as a daylight raid closer to Britain, it's more possible than any operation against Poland. Any kind of operation against Poland is essentially nearly suicide for the planes involved, or just bombing a lot of forests somewhere near these camps. But attacking some fighter bombers, attacking a building in, say, northern France, north of Paris, being there in the English Channel, it's been considered. Hasn't been acted on yet, but it's possible.
Can your agents get us this Gestapo information? You said they're highly placed.
Yes, I believe that they can.
I imagine the resistance is well aware of where transit camps are in France. They'll be big and full of prisoners. So.
It's I would say well known for the most part.
Yes. But at that point it comes down to SOE and the resistance planning, and the RAF gets brought in. It gives a couple of days notice, and you can do something there.
And I think doing that in tandem with the railways and the depots is our best shot.
Basically,
currently there have been 2 air raids on large locomotive repair shops near Paris, and several attacks, I think 8, on industrial centers at Rouen, just outside of Paris, in the spring of this year. That's
in where?
Rouen, just outside of Paris, this year in the spring.
Oh, Rouen. Okay.
So
sorry.
We British don't always pronounce things the way
That's what it says on the map.
It's fine. It's just I blanked out for a moment.
Could Agent Atkins, do you think could you smuggle in people? I mean, you train people all the time. Can you smuggle people in a bit more east and perhaps do some sabotage there that might be effective?
Logistically, in short, yes. It's a matter of getting them all of the requisite travel papers.
Yes.
We wouldn't airdrop them directly there necessarily. We would get them closer and then use existing transit to
As I understand it,
bring them
the
overland.
Polish and Czechoslovakian governments in exile have been cooperating with SOE. I just know this because our airplanes carry their agents
Now,
to
I
let them
will
out with parachutes.
I will note, Commodore, and I will say this on behalf of the SOE, because I know that they have been complaining about this to me for quite some time and quite regularly.
Well, the bumpy rides are nothing we can do anything about.
They have requested more than once that you might make more planes available to them for their
They have a
air-tops.
specific there are currently 2 squadrons on special service, and I don't believe they are. Well, you mean to Eastern Europe, for example?
No, just generally speaking, it was I believe they said it was like pulling teeth to get you to allow them to have those planes at all, and they could do more work if you allowed them to have a bit more access.
I believe one of the shortages is not aircraft, though. They don't grow on trees.
No.
It's pilots. Pilots have to be trained, and a lot of our pilots were lost fighting the Luftwaffe last year, and many of them are involved in fighting the Luftwaffe over North Africa and over Europe currently. So it's pilots, especially the SOE asks for pilots to land aircraft at night in occupied France. Those are very specially trained men in that case.
Well, there are quite a few.
They have to be rationed.
Yes, well, my understanding is that the Americans might have some pilots, and there are some women who are currently British citizens, of course, who are qualified but not allowed to fly in dangerous territory.
That's an area where the SOE has more influence than the War Department, shall we say. Providing aircraft and pilots is a matter of balance. There are other needs, bombing missions and things. The gender of the pilots, we don't know of any qualified female combat pilots because, of course, there have not been any.
Yes.
But that's a issue.
We're having a bit of a... Perhaps you might speak to Churchill. We're having a bit of a trouble because quite a few of our women right now are not British citizens because British citizen women are not quite allowed yet officially. Some are there unofficially. Might you prevail upon Churchill to perhaps loosen some of those things? I understand that the optics would be bad if one of the Roses of England were murdered by the Gestapo, but if there are pilots that we could use, and I have been assured by Agent Atkins that there are indeed pilots who are qualified, who are women who could do this, if they might be allowed a bit more freedom to go into these areas, we might be able to use them as pilots.
Well, another option would be to begin employing them as ferry pilots and releasing male combat qualified pilots to work for the SOE. There are many pilots who fly aircraft from factories to the airfields, from between the airfields, and those are qualified RAF pilots. If there were other persons who were qualified but could conduct these activities, then those RAF pilots who are doing that currently would be able to fly combat missions for for Bomber Command and for the SOE, perhaps. But
what about you Americans? Do you have qualified pilots we could have?
Well, we're certainly bringing people over to Ireland right now. It's not my department in terms of how those pilots are tasked, but I'm sure I can run that up the line.
All right, because we do need more pilots. Also, some mini subs would be nice. Look, I will leave this to Agent Atkins to speak on, and perhaps also Agent Asher, who has been the ears and eyes for all this, but there has been quite a bit of resistance about using women agents on the ground. Quite a few people find this idea distasteful and perhaps inappropriate. To be fair, a propaganda nightmare were something to happen. But I must say, the SOE has been doing, good work experimenting with using women in various roles, and they might be perhaps perhaps a key to helping solve this problem. Agent Atkins, might you speak to this? How have women been doing?
We have certainly found that women are some of our most effective agents in the field because of the expectations that you gentlemen have all just exhibited. Women are not scrutinized as heavily when they are seen in places that they maybe should not necessarily be. Women are more easily to pass, we've found, through more highly scrutinized scenarios than men in their positions in general. So we have endeavored to enlist more women in the SOE.
Agent Asher, what have you seen? How are they holding up? The fairer sex.
About as well as the rest of us. They're highly capable.
I do know that His Majesty's government employs about, I believe it's currently about 100 or 120 female pilots who are not in the military. They're members of the Air Transport Auxiliary.
Yes.
And they're employed in various, as you might guess, transport, testing, a newly produced airplane gets flown to make sure it will fly, that sort of thing. They certainly have a lot of time in the air.
Yes.
I don't know about their qualifications for landing at night in the continent, but they certainly qualified as pilots. So, of course, if they are taken off of those duties, someone else will have to do what they're doing now. So if you must have female pilots, well, that is possibly them. I don't know. I cannot say whether they're the most qualified, but there they are.
Yes. If that would help, this plan to help recruit.
Well, I believe the SOE was specifically, they wanted more airplanes. Each airplane must have a pilot.
Yes.
So if we free pilots up from the Air Transport Auxiliary, they must be replaced with more pilots.
Well, that's what the Americans are for, aren't they?
Yes, we're very good at that kind of thing, yes.
I understand that the Americans will be ferrying aircraft over to Britain at some point. So presumably they will come with pilots.
So are we resolved that we will not release these tapes? Do we share them with any other governments besides we three?
No.
I do not believe it should.
I don't believe it would be safe to share it with the Soviet Union.
Agreed.
If you want it to be kept secret, do
Agreed.
not share it with Soviet Union, because
Yes.
they will find a reason to share it if it's to their benefit.
And certainly not Poland, because they're saying all sorts of things. Well,
actually, there would be a reason to share it with the Polish government in exile if you were to ask them to drop their airborne brigade into one of these camps. But I believe that plan is fanciful and unlikely.
We could also simply come up with another reason why, or something to tell them as to why we are doing this without giving them this information.
perhaps.
If there's also a difference between giving them giving the information and sharing the recording.
Yes.
Yeah.
We
Yes.
could, for example, share if we saw potential benefits to sharing the information with the Soviet Union, for example, if we can use that to leverage a place to stage bombing operations.
Yes.
For example.
Yes.
Without actually sharing without actually, we might even play the recording for them.
Yes.
But giving them a copy of it is an entirely different issue.
Yes. If this would allow us to actually get access to their spaces for bombing, that would be quite useful. Quicker.
Goebbels has made it clear that the Slavs will be cleared out of Europe also. I don't think that the Soviets are going to go, oh no, I've just now realized the Germans are bad and we should let the British have bomber
Yes.
bases. They won't do that because of these camps. They already know that they face extermination themselves from the Nazis.
But I think there's a difference between sort of them saying it, and I mean, Hitler goes on in his speeches for hours, saying it, and actually seeing that there's a practical plan that's being implemented. It seems.
I don't believe that Stalin and his inner circle have any doubts about the practicality of exterminating millions of people.
Well, yes.
They've done it. To ask the Ukrainians,
Yes.
they've done it. Not as efficiently as the Nazis, mind you. The Nazis are a very scientific and engineering-minded set of people, but the willingness to do so, I don't believe Stalin would put it beyond them. So, not because he has any doubts in that regard.
Well, what do we,
It's preferable we do not share it with Stalin.
No, I don't think that would be useful at all.
so what do we do about this? Look, what do we do about MI6? They're breathing down my neck. They want some means to. Well, they've got a good asset they think can be helpful in trying to, stage a coup. They say they've got people, and they can get allies all over France. France, Belgium, they say they've got people in the occupied government that would participate in an overthrow of the German government if they had enough, what do you call it, English, or what do you call it? If they had enough, enough. If they could get enough, if they could discredit enough or scandalize enough, show that what's going on is, look, these people clearly are trying to hide what they're doing. The Nazis are not broadcasting details in a way. They clearly still care about the appearance of legality in some sort of a way.
Could we manufacture minutes of a meeting and suggest that they were found in another way?
Well, I imagine this goes back to your idea, Agent Asher, about pinning it on Eichmann, which may not work, but perhaps if we made some sort of forgery, that's your specialization over there, of these minutes, and those minutes leaked, we could perhaps leak those.
At this point, why confine yourself to fact? The Germans will deny it. Therefore, why confine yourself to actually what happened or was said? The Germans will deny it. This
I believe what has been
fantasy
said
that the
is
British
sufficient. No.
Yes.
Should we suggest that they are also targeting some more popular group?
Perhaps.
That could be helpful. I mean,
Why-
as it
why-
stands right now, the minutes are unbelievable.
Yes.
Exactly. If you're going to release, minutes that we create, why not make, a meeting between Hitler and the devil, and where they talk about their plan? I mean, you can, once you untie the plan from the actual meeting at the Wannsee, why not make something entirely
I mean,
to our profit, but doesn't endanger agents?
The Masons, perhaps.
Perhaps.
we could set up an
the
entire.
The Pope,
Oh yes.
the Catholics, the
The
Pope.
Catholics.
So, or the Italians even, but the Pope is an
Yes.
obvious one. So,
Yes, Catholics might be good. You have quite a bit of, also, if I might say, the Polish government exile has published their white and their black book with all that details that nobody seems to be paying attention to. But if our minutes corroborate what they've been saying, that
then
might
suddenly,
yes. Then all of a sudden, you can't ignore them as much.
if we're starting a propaganda campaign to help undermine the Vichy government and also the Third Reich, so that your
Secondarily,
agent in MI6, huh?
Secondarily, the Third Reich. Yes.
Yes.
Go on.
Well, we could start how would you a press an underground press, if you will.
Yes.
Get the papers in the hands of everyone. Everyone will talk about it, but it's not through official channels. The way I see it, if everyone knows about it, but the state papers don't talk about it, it already shows that the government is hiding something, despite them not doing anything yet.
If it would help, or rather, the RAF has conducted I believe, 5 pamphlet missions mostly occupied France, I believe one over Antwerp and something over Belgium, dropping leaflets. Now, Air Marshal Harris does not approve of these because the air crews get shot down and they're just as dead as if they had dropped bombs on a useful target. And the utility of pamphlet missions has been debated, but if you had it still goes on, they still go on.
No, but if we had a press
particular
on the ground.
Yes.
Well, that would be more useful. And certainly, I believe Air Marshal Harris would be very much in favor of a French press on the ground rather than airplanes throwing bombs out.
What do you think about this? I'm trying to think about how we can best use these agents who have connections to German inner circles. If we were able to fabricate some minutes, plant them on one of these German inner circle members, who then is killed, and make sure the body is found by someone not us, but who would then report such things. Maybe we can arrange to have some sort of press or
neutral diplomats.
Yes, neutral diplomats.
Swiss or Swedish or Spanish.
Yes, perhaps if we
If they're neutral, they may not release it, though.
Well, there's that risk.
Well,
if it's shocking on us, I would like to think that Sweden would feel shocked by this kind of information.
But the thing is it's shocking, but it's also completely unbelievable.
That is
a
problem.
Had I not heard the recordings, it would be. It's the realm of horror stories.
One of the issues that the press has had, in Britain at least, is that during the First War, during the Great War, there were many stories published in Allied press in France and in Britain about the atrocities committed by the Germans in Belgium.
Yes.
And much of this was entirely fabricated.
Yes.
Atrocity propaganda was out of control, and now people will just accuse our press of more of that.
I think it helps that Hitler has been saying these things.
Yes. He's been saying them since the 1920s.
Yes, but of course, the plan of creating minutes and planting them seems to be smarter than because minutes have the air of authenticity.
Yes.
Nobody would think.
Yes.
Minutes are true. Stories are false.
Yes. There is one other option, I thought, which goes back to Asher. Asher thought we could frame Eichmann, but that seems unlikely. People wouldn't believe that he would do it. But what if, rather than believing that he turned on them, I mean, these Nazis, like to record everything, don't they? They like to have all sorts of documentation. What if Eichmann made the recording secretly? And if we kill Eichmann and we have these recordings on him, then it's not the agents who took the recordings, but Eichmann. And if we can recover them from him or someone who was at the meeting, somebody from the inner circle, if Eichmann is the secretary, recording secretary of this thing, it would make sense he might have something like that. In which case, if we could get them off of his body, he didn't betray the party. He was just, it was found upon him. That might be a way to get access to these recordings, to launder them, as it were.
Do we even have to kill him to make that happen? I mean, not that I'm against killing him, but it might be difficult.
Yeah. Well, we'd have to get them off of him, right? It'd have to be believable. If we said we had them from him, people won't necessarily believe it, right? We'd have to sort of prove that. I mean, if we could get a third-party person to find them on his body, that might be useful. Agent Atkins.
The issue with that is of credibility.
Yes.
No matter how artfully we craft a story, it is not going to be more plausible to the Germans who are making the decision who to blame Eichmann than to blame our agents who were the ones.
In addition, you take a difficult task, assassinating Eichmann, and you make it twice as difficult because now you have to do that, and you must escape.
Yes.
Which
yes,
difficult, and then some.
I think a better plan is we know this information. We can look for other avenues where it is displayed and target those in ways that do not compromise our agents. Intercepting orders in some way, shape, or form, and getting those broadcast in some sort of way, or
I think that brings up the
falsifying
problem
in
of,
order to broadcast
Yes.
something that should not be public.
Yes.
That sort of a thing. This gives us not a weapon in itself, but a tool to create other weapons.
I wonder if anyone who is committed to disbelief will be convinced by any of those things, and if what we actually need is photographic evidence of the camps.
could you get photographic evidence through the SOE?
Of the atrocities?
Yes. Could you smuggle someone into Poland?
Potentially.
So, this is a strange question, but one of your agents is doing propaganda films, yes?
Yes, that is correct.
Well, I assume the Nazis are going to want... The Nazis love their propaganda films. I imagine they'd want to take propaganda films of, the camps, especially if these rumors are about. One that says that it's lovely and good, right, and positive and friendly. Might your agent go in there and actually perhaps take clandestine, actual propaganda photography? That might... And if we could get that, well, that might be a way in.
I fear then we would be in the same position that
Yes.
we have now, however.
Yeah.
Yes. Photographic evidence would be good if we could somehow get photographs, films.
I believe the trick is getting Germans to do the work for us.
If I might say, this is not our specialty, but you wish to take some number of photographs of starving people being lined up by Germans and shot in a disgusting camp. Why go to Poland? We have Wales for that. Why go all the way to Poland? We know that it's happening, and we want to convince the world of it. Why do these pictures need to be authentic at all? Why risk the lives of many agents and a network of high value? And you have this propaganda photographer already working for you. Make your own film of the terrible things. I mean, the Nazis will deny it anyhow. Make your own film. Spread it to the world. Tell them that you've snuck an agent into their terrible camp in Poland and took these pictures. The Germans will deny it anyway. Make your own. If that is what you think will help. I don't know that it will. I don't know that it will change their decision making one bit at all.
But it might change.
If it will convince, say, the Brazilians or Stalin, then go ahead. It will look the same. The film will look the same. There will be thin people in big overcoats in a nasty, muddy camp.
And we do have transit camps in France. Also, I must say that there...
Well, you could do it in Britain. You could film it anywhere. In America, they won't know. It will be silent, black and white, silent film. Don't make it look too good. I think you know that.
Yes. But we also have
It will look the same, and it won't risk people's lives.
It's a possibility. I mean, you do have experts over there in your Hollywood.
I may say so myself, yes.
Well,
this propaganda film expert is the expert, and the camp doesn't have to be, very fake. You just build an actual, barbed wire and posts are available in all countries. So these camps are, I have not seen photographs, but I imagine they're filthy tar paper shacks in a big muddy field in Poland.
I imagine we could get at least some sort of, we could get eyewitness accounts. We could get this information, I'm sure.
Has there been any people that
know.
actually fled those camps?
Yes. Poland, the Polish government exile has
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 there you go.
eyewitnesses.
The what do you call
Then-
it? The Black Book, I believe
Yes.
you described it as.
Yes.
then, yeah, that's possible.
I don't know that this is a good idea, but I think it's a better one than going into the camps to make a film, because the
Yes.
picture looks the same. Tired, hungry people standing around in the mud.
The issue is the same as the Poles are having right now, which is getting anyone to pay attention,
Yes.
regardless of the craft of it.
Yes.
Hmm.
I mean,
If
we know
people
that these
do
camps
not
exist.
want to see something, they will refrain from seeing it.
Yes. Though I not to. All right, my dear Frenchman, this does not go beyond this room. Is that so?
Nothing we say here will go beyond the walls of. For my part,
Yes.
anyway, I'm not saying anything
All right.
to anyone.
We have contact. MI6 has contact with Admiral Canars, who's the head of German military intelligence and a great war hero. He
Okay.
has been disturbed by the Nazi government for some time. He has been working with us to undermine their intelligence efforts, and he's been trying to organize a coup d'etat. According to him, there are quite a few military people who are not happy. Also, some old police people who are not happy with this government. But they need to be able to, in order to convince these old Prussians, they need to show that what's happening is that there are actually illegal and dishonorable things happening in greater numbers than, well, they need to see it. And if he says that if he can get evidence, and if he can convince the generals that sticking with Hitler is going to doom Germany, that he needs a bit more international outrage, and he needs a bit more evidence that can convince some of these old Prussians he went to military academies with to overthrow things. Then if we could maybe give him that, we might be able to get...
You want us to foment outrage?
Yes. And right
May
now,
I ask
people are not as outraged as they could be.
What is the view of the SOE and of Canaris? Hitler is overthrown by a coup.
Yes.
Prussian generals overthrow him. What does Stalin do? Does he stop? He does not.
But
The Germans. So the Germans, they immediately retreat out of. Do they retreat out of Poland? Do they retreat back to the Germany of 1939? Is Stalin pleased with that?
You'd have
I
to get
don't
Stalin
believe
to
so.
agree.
Otherwise, he will just keep following them all the way to the old German border and then keep going into Germany, and they will know this.
And then we'll
If he
lose
does
all
not
of that
agree-
to the Reds. We can't have that.
And he will hang every German general he can find. Why would they agree to that?
Can we rein in Stalin?
Oh well. Do you have compromising photographs of him? I don't.
Can we get them? Well,
I believe he makes them, or rather,
Can-
he does that for other people. So I don't know.
Can
Handling
a
Stalin is
compromise
not
be-
my.
I don't think it's my prerogative either, but can a compromise be reached with Stalin?
That would have to be arranged at the very highest levels. That is why they are planning a conference in about a year between leaders, only people with very strong personalities, such as your General de Gaulle or Mr. Churchill or the American President Roosevelt, will be acceptable to Stalin and have strong enough personality, I think he would say, to convince him of, you have to do it this way or it's not happening. So,
And this coup that your agent wants to do, a year's time, is that too much? Is that too short?
well,
I mean, if you want international outrage,
Yes.
I'm sorry, but we lack a good communication tool that, crosses every borders almost
Yes.
instantaneously.
I will say this.
If-
It will take time.
Yes, but we have had a success. there is an ally in France whose position was perhaps a bit more insecure, but some of the work of the agents to destabilize the Gestapo and the SS has kept that very important, influential government official in power. And this government official has said that if there is a coup, he will arrest the SS leadership in France. So if it happens, we have people at least in France in place. We might be able to get people in Belgium as well, and those occupying forces. We just need outrage. We need a bit more time. They need to gather more allies. But in order to get those allies, they need assurances, and they need something disturbing. Perhaps these minutes, if we could fabricate these minutes, we could perhaps pass them on to him, and I'm sure he could pass them on to he could use them to help convince people, in which case that means these meetings, these minutes are, well.
Does I believe Ms. Atkins would know, would minutes be too dangerous for your highly placed agents? Fabricated minutes, of course, but even so.
I mean, if they're fabricated minutes, then they're...
Well, as in transcript. We look at the film, or we listen to the tape and write down everything, like we were a Nazi stenographer, and put signed Eichmann at the bottom.
Yeah, what she's saying is if they're fabricated, then of course the agents are safe because those who were in that meeting know it's not true and that it was fabricated. Whereas if there's any hint of truth, then our agents are in jeopardy.
Exactly so.
Well, on the other hand, they did take minutes, yes? Because that's how they are. They do that all the time. So if it's a fabricated, if we create basically a, what do you call it, like a counterfeit, right? Well, there are minutes, so it could very well be the actual minutes. How would they know, right? If they
because if it's the actual minutes, then our agents are in jeopardy.
Not
as
necessarily.
long as it's fabricated.
Because it raises scrutiny. It heightens scrutiny, and the moment that happens, the moment the eyes start looking is when they start seeing our agents.
Unless we couldn't steal the minutes. Nuances. If we can get the minutes from whoever actually has it.
Yes. Who has them and where are they going? What if they have an accident and the minutes
normally,
are found?
A meeting of that level, the minutes will go only to senior decision makers who need to have proof of what was discussed and to tell their bosses. So I imagine,
for example,
something went to the Führer or something like that.
Yeah,
so.
but
one of our agents who's already close to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Presumably every person in that meeting is going to have them, and some of those people have to go back out east. Some of those people are not staying in Germany. They're going to have to travel.
What if their train was to be derailed?
Yes.
If you can identify them and locate a train in eastern Poland heading to the Eastern Front and derail it and get them, there's a lot of information that will be hard to plan. Like the movements of particular Nazi secret officers in the eastern part of Poland as they move around.
Well, I don't mean to be flip, but I believe that's what spies are for.
Yes, indeed.
Well,
yeah.
Good luck.
Exactly so.
So then it is decided we will try to find someone who might actually legitimately have minutes and get them from this person so that we can then use those.
It cannot hurt the war effort. It can certainly hurt the agents and agent networks involved. But as far as the war effort goes, you have my blessing.
Air Commander, that is literally our jobs.
Good.
All right.
The for Monsieur Dibasson, the attacking transit camps, dropping weapons in France, Belgium, west of Germany, northern France particularly, with warning, a couple of days warning, and we want a bomb or bombs here to blow up the side of this building, and you have to accept that nothing is going to just be a little explosion with one wall falling down. It's bombs, but it can be done. Yes, bigger. Well, but dropping in weapons like from parachutes and bombing open the walls, destroying hopefully more of the garrison and less of the prisoners, the RAF has studied it. So so you would have to pass that through the SOE, or through your representatives with the very highest levels. So
do you think that you can reach, I don't recall the map from earlier by heart, but can your bombers reach Strasbourg?
The bombers certainly can, yes. However, the bombers that reach that far are the heavy bombers, which attack at night. So maybe not
precise.
If the camp is emptied before then, who cares?
Well, then it's easier. So
yes,
it is just a
yeah,
tangential question. Madam Atkins, would the SOE be amenable to help the Gaul's resistance movement?
Of course. I think in particular, something that I thought of earlier while we were talking, the idea of the problem with these night bombing raids is accuracy. But what if we knew a target ahead of time and were able to plan, perhaps get our agents in there to light the place up?
It certainly would help.
The same reason that we turn off our lights when the raid sirens go on, but our agents turn them on instead.
It certainly could help. That or radio direction finding. It's the Germans know of this, so it hasn't been. It's not really a strategically useful technology, and at this level, you're all clear to know there are plans to make radio direction finding so that our bombers can watch England with their radios, as it were, be directed towards a target. But if a powerful radio were placed in a target location, bombers would home in on that radio and then drop the bombs. However, the film of the common cinema trope of the German van that drives around with the words Telefunken Zot Zot on the side, looking for the Allied spy transmitter, that would be doubly dangerous for a powerful transmitter. But yes, that would help.
But if it's last minute, as late as possible, yes?
Well, if it's heavy bombers, they take off at known times, and they would be the radio person would be told the bombers will be here around midnight or whatever. Then the bombers need, say, half an hour to get on the beam and follow it. These are technical details that I don't think we need to discuss here, but
it's doable.
But that's disguised this equipment as filming equipment.
Well, or take over an existing radio station, if there is one, at the location. So it's large radio stuff. So we're talking about maybe not a whole truckload, but bulky.
And presumably one could, if not remote trigger, then set a time trigger on the radio to go on.
These are all technical issues that could be solved.
Yes.
British radio technology is the
best in the world.
Best in the world, yes.
Sorry about that, Americans.
Michael says, go watch the movie.
We invented the airplane, so.
Michael says in an aside, go watch the movie Agent of Orange, where they scoff uproariously at the terrible radios sent to their agents in occupied Holland. So, but yes, British equipment is the best in the world. So.
Well then, I think we have multiple ways to get information to the people we need to get it to through a bit of misdirection, relying heavily on the SOE. Well, without burning those agents, their connections to the inner circle of the power will be quite useful. And if we can get some of the French colonies to house some of these refugees, that means we'll have a place for them to go. If we can get some of this training from the weapons and airplanes from the Americans, well, then we might be able actually to arm some of these people we've rescued and bring them back in. And that, especially if we have a bit of if we can get this fellow, Admiral, to get a bit of a coup, even if he's not completely successful, if they can at least
disrupt it enough.
Yes, disrupt it enough, pull off some of the occupied territories, that might be.
Or if he can extend his own network, if he has convincing proof of the terrible things. He will meet officers who perhaps are on the fence about why should I work with you?
Yes.
And he could say, well, look, there's terrible things. You should work with us. But
Yes.
of course, every time you give that to a person, you trust Canaris. He trusts you, I guess. But every time he shows it to an officer who he does not entirely have the trust of yet,
Yes.
then the moment later, the officer says, no, 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 and I'm going to run off and tell Hitler that you
Yes.
have the picture of this meeting.
Yes, well, that is his job, isn't it? All
Well,
right.
I hear he's very capable. So,
Yes. So, I would like to thank you all for this meeting. I will follow up with you, Agent Atkins, to do the details, as long as we can get assurances from Roosevelt, de Gaulle, and of course Churchill. We can perhaps move some things in order. Having a place for the refugees to go means we can actually get some people out. If we can get some information from your American agent about who his contact is in Paris that allows him to get so many people out so quietly, that would be useful. And I think some fabrications of evidence so that we can actually use it usefully. Agent Atkins, I would like to hear from you after this, of course, how we might best use you as subtly to undermine. I think you have quite a bit going on there that will be quite useful. And please, Agent Dubuisson, we will keep you in the loop for these things, because if we're going to free some transit camps in France, well, I think that your resources will be quite important.
Thank you, Mr. Brigadier, but it's not Agent Dubuisson, it's just Jean-Marc. I'm just a man who loves his country.
Of course.
There's no just with that statement.
Yes. Agent Asher, you're speaking with these agents, yes? On the wireless?
Yes, I am.
Tell them that we appreciate their service.
Every day.
and the War Office and the Minister of War are amazingly impressed that they've gotten so close to very dangerous, powerful people within the Nazi hierarchy. So,
yes,
and pass along our amazement. So.
Yes, and if you, Commodore, if you might just, poke Church about easing some of those restrictions on women in war zones, it would be very helpful for the SOE if we could drop officially more women agents rather than having to recruit women who are already in country. It would be quite useful. Anytime.
Note.
Thank you. And with that, my friends, we will have our meeting come to a close. But I do have one question that I'd like to ask PB.
Mm-hmm.
PB, you got a message, a personal message from Regina in her last broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
Indicating some concern about how close she's had to get to the head of the Gestapo in occupied France.
Mm-hmm.
And you know from reports that he's a bit of a serial killer, actually. And by serial killer, I don't mean just that he kills lots of people as part of his job as a Gestapo, which he does do.
Yeah.
But also he just likes to kill people for fun, off work time as well. A bit of concern about that, and a bit of concern about how they're all going to manage this. I would like to ask, I know there'll be a report that'll be made and encrypted, and this will be sent off. What ends up happening after some discussions will be sent off back to them. But let me ask you, do you have a personal message you would like to send the team? I have my pen.
Is this directly to her?
It is.
Um,
because we're going to start the next episode when we next see, because Regina will not be in the opening episode, episode 2. She comes in, so she won't be there, so which means she's going to get a message from you that nobody else will get to hear just yet. And I'm very excited if you have a message.
Okay. Do you want me to say it now, or do you want me to type it to you?
Well, either one, whichever one you want.
Cover our ears.
I kind of want to send it to you.
Please do.
She specifically says, "Do you remember what you told me in London?"
Yeah.
And I have a response to that.
Yes.
So,
excellent.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I want to thank everyone who's been here in person watching us, and all those on YouTube who are watching us, thank you for being here. Thank you for this opening of season 5, where I'm excited to see where this is going to go. I want to thank every single one of you who has been here to offer these messages and thoughts about what to do about this intel that has happened, which for those who might want to know, in real life, this information, first off, the minutes of the Wannsee conference don't come out to the end, but it isn't until the end of this year around, there's a big UN thing that happens in August, December. So it's not going to be until the end of this year that really what's happening starts coming out much more broadly. And so our game has a bit of a chance to get to expedite the timeline in a way that might be impactful in important ways to change, to save some people or change some things in ways. And we might get some, the lack of a place for refugees to go is a problem, but we might be able to get some places for some armies, some partisans to be sort of brought in and move together. So I'm excited to see what will happen from this and how we might move just a little bit more piece by piece. And I would like to, we have had some donations, and I would like to read out those messages before we have our outros. And so to thank all of you for being here, I would like to say we have, right? Yes. So we have some bits that have come in from Jay Newman, has been our new Patreon. Thank you, Jay Newman, our new Patreon. We have bits from Rissa, who says happy season 5. 1,500 bits from Draftier. Thank you, Draftier. We have 1,000 bits for Rissa, who just came in, who said, "What a wonderful kickoff for the season." Willen, who's our French chronicler of this show, who takes our notes, has donated 100 bits and said, "Thanks all. It's been fascinating and amazing." Time of Gifts donated 800 bits with a big cheer, and Hyped donated $100. And I want you all to know, for those of you who are guests, I always pay the cast, and so all of you all, of course, will be getting paid for today's session because it is important that you pay your cast for their labor, because that's important.
Just put it out there for now. I'll get there soon, Mom.
And so, oh, hello, camera. So thank you, everybody, and we're going to do our outros. I would like each one of you to say who you are, where we can find you. If you have anything you want to hype, please do. And I would like to start with first in, last out. So, Michael, please tell us who you are, if there's anything you would like to hype, and remind us who you played, and give us your I'll put it this way, give us your pledge, what the War Office is planning to do for this current season, as it were.
Well, my name is Michael Blume, and I've been gaming role-playing games since like about 1977. Lots of different gaming systems, lots of Call of Cthulhu, and currently lots of Dragon Age and RuneQuest, but lots of other games going on, and a lot of involvement with a long-running role-playing campaign set in the 1930s. So, and mostly involving British people. So I got a lot of background there. So. And as far as the War Office, well, they'll pass this information along to Churchill. Churchill actually would allow women to take part in combat as long as they wore men's clothing, but he would never allow them to fly aircraft in combat.
Mm-hmm.
Duh. Weird. It was as long as they dressed like men, they could shoot people, but
I would rephrase the in combat to
yes.
Participating in a shooting fashion, since they were frequently shot at.
Yeah, shot at. So
Yeah.
I posted a quote in the chat there. It's like, not until the last gasp of our life and civilization should we allow women to fight in the air. So good
the
luck
air
with
is
that.
so like there's weird machismo about the air. Very weird stuff about the air that like it's very odd.
But coming up in about 2 months is the first active Mosquito fighter bomber squadron, which is what you need for blowing up little Gestapo headquarters here and there in France, for example. So there's that. So that's the RAF likes that because it's like, ooh, we're heroic guys and we're not getting killed in a bomber in the middle of the night over Germany. Maybe we can get, maybe if we you know what, maybe if we get some information over to the Russians, maybe we'll get some
night witches
Mhm.
stationed over here to work with
There
us.
you go.
We will see.
Well, good
We'll
luck
see.
cooperating with the Russians before. So the thing coming up is the Tehran
Yeah.
conference, which is what, December of 1943, I
Yeah.
think. And before that, you can't get anything out of the Soviets. We can give them stuff, but you're not getting it from them. So anyway, and Air Marshal Harris, Bomber Harris, as far as he's concerned, any day you're not bombing German cities is a day wasted. So that's all you're going to get out of him as far as big bombing raids. So
And we'll go to my buddy David. David, who are you? Hype something you'd like to hype, and what will you say? Because I'm just saying this right now. You all, as players, now get a chance to decide that your faction does something that then will come into our game. Like, you get to make a choice because that's how RPGs work. You have large faction power. So what do you commit the Americans to? That is what I ask you.
Okay, so my name is David Kaminsky. Let's see, hype something. I have a blog. It's popolytics.com, pop-o-lytics.com, where I say things that are, I have opinions that are very different from the opinions that I voiced today, which were not my own. I hope everyone realized. Let's see, what is the OSS going to be doing?
You did so well.
Yeah, you did.
Oh, thank you. Streaming debut, I think. So the OSS is definitely going to be trying to make a name for itself in some way, probably by horning in on some sort of thing that the SOE is doing, but doesn't know exactly what it is yet. But definitely is going to try to leverage the fact that some of its early that the agent who has left the OSS has left the SOE and is working for us as one of the founders. So gonna butt in somewhere, but I don't know exactly where.
In case, for those of you who are here want to know, that contact, which the rest of the team doesn't actually know, because the American didn't actually share it as much, the head of the Grand Mosque in Paris has access to the catacombs and basically hid 600, 700 North African Jews underneath the Grand Mosque, and then got them to have passports saying they were Arabs, and smuggled them out through the river. So like there's like this massive area underneath the Grand Mosque that they were hiding hundreds of Jews there, all North African Jews, yeah.
And back then the catacombs were probably a lot sturdier than they are today.
Yeah. And so they have clearly worked out how to smuggle out large amounts of people through the rivers. So that is a contact that the agent Tango knows, but the rest of the team doesn't know, and that is a thing that can get them access to getting more people out in a slightly safer way. So, and that is I'm excited for that one. So then let's go next to Simon. Simon, tell me who you are, give some hype, and then tell me what De Gaulle's forces are going to commit to for this season.
So, hi everyone, I'm Simon at Wandering DM. You can find me over on my channel, The Wandering Society, normally on Friday nights, like tonight, but not tonight. We play Dresden Files on Saturday afternoons at 1 p.m. Eastern. We play Scion 2nd Edition, which is basically a American Gods meets Percy Jackson. And then on Thursday, I GM a game of Sentinels of the Multiverse in a sort of Marvel cinematic universe that I created that is mostly inspired by Falcon and the Winter Soldier, at least in the same vibes as Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because it's not Marvel based. And then we also play a super cool game on Tuesdays called Tomorrow on Revelation 3, which is a futuristic cyberpunk game of trying to create a community and survive in a hyper-capitalistic environment. And it's aboard a space station. Ooh. It's very interesting because it touches on basically all the fight that you would do in cyberpunk to change the system, but you do it through peaceful and creative ways. So it's, however, the game has a lot of Nickelback for some reason. So
Mm.
I don't know why, but that happened. Otherwise, you can find the stuff that I've been working on very soon. The Tome of Chaos for The Witcher should come out at some point, as well as Vampire the Masquerade Chapters, which is going to be released on in September of this year. And that is it for me. As for the goal, well, so the thing with the goal is, regardless of this meeting, he had already started sending an agent. There's a dude right now in France with like $1.5 million francs, or was it pounds? And he's going to basically convince everyone to join up, except the communists, to join up together. So I think
it'll take
one thing that yeah, it's going to take a while though, and he doesn't really rally everyone to his cause. But I think the Gaul, now that his stupid ego has been satisfied by, you know, being named the chief dude, whatever, he's going to commit to what we've repeated nonstop tonight, getting sand in the gears. It's going to be just a campaign of sabotage and guerrilla fighting all over France, to just try to stall the German machine as much as possible.
If here's the thing, one of the big problems that really stopped a lot of the Allies really downplayed the Holocaust when they started getting evidence of it, because they didn't want to deal with the refugee crisis, because nobody wanted to allow Jews in their country, except for the Dominican Republic. It was like, yeah, Dominican Republic was like, sure, that's cool. And so it was like, let's not mention that so much. Let's just focus on like the war part, because of that. So if you can get de Gaulle to agree to allow some of these refugees to come to some of the French colonies, will make America and the UN and Britain really happy that they don't have to take care of it. But that will then that will save a bunch of lives. And with this idea of then arming them, especially if the OSS gets involved in like being the people who are training them, there's going to be a lot of like win-wins for a lot of people in that way.
Yeah, I get the feeling that this meeting was very productive.
Yeah. Which will then lead us to Anna Geeks, the origin of all Northwest streaming. Yes. I'm just. You have the title. Who are you? Give us some hype, and what gift do you give for this season?
I am Anna Geeks. I'm not really doing anything super exciting right now. I don't have a huge amount to promote on my own front, so I would say go support the Electronic Frontier Foundation. There you go. Do that instead. The thing that I would like to push forward into the future of your show is more collaborations with the other spy agencies.
Yeah, it's tricky. Yes, that will happen, because it's the gift. You get to do that. A lot of the other spy agencies were like, oh, the SOE, whatever. Like they were a little pissy about it, but it is so.
MI6 does not like SOE.
Not at all. They really don't. But if you can help them with their Kanara situation, then they might like you a lot more, right? So, which
also other thing to promote, check out Vera Atkins. Look up Vera Atkins, because
look up Vera Atkins. There's also a couple of South African women who were pilots who were like, That said, also on our Discord, we post things all the time about these people because these people are amazing. And yeah, Virginia Hall, there's just yes. So, number 5, the personal touch. Very professional, hardcore, very serious, Pumpkin Berry. Who are you? Give some
Very
hype.
serious, always serious, never laughing or joking. Yep. Hello, hi, I'm Pumpkinberry. I am a player and DM over on Table Story mostly right now. I have a new show coming out next Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern. It's Title Blades. It's really wholesome.
Cool.
Yeah, really wholesome. Very exciting. Troopers in it.
Me?
Mhm.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
So we're very, very, very excited. So come and join us for that. And otherwise, that's it. And thank you for having me. And wow, that was like, for the first, I want to say 30, 40 minutes. I didn't want to say anything. Because I feel like my character's not really like I mean, she's there, but she doesn't feel like she can say anything because everybody else is higher ranking than she is. But also, it was just fascinating to listen to. It was just really, really good. So yeah. Anyway, thank you for having me, and that's it.
But what present do you give the show going forward? Because each of you get to give a present. Everybody gets to give a present.
What is the extent of my present? Because I do have my message now.
Because here's the thing.
Would you like me to say it?
I'm gonna give basically. I'm gonna make an aspect for each one of your gifts. Right. Each one of your gifts will be an aspect that they're going to be able to use as a resource throughout this season. Because
I would like to either intercept or get a radio transmission that has directly to do with who my wife, yes, my wife, who is who she's become really close to. I would like to give her something that might help save her life if I can, if I may do so, even if it endangers my own.
Okay, I'm going to tell you this. Can you get that? Yes. Who has that? The people over at Bletchley Park. It's the Enigma people, because they're the ones who are getting these, who are decrypting these sort of these communications.
Well, maybe I can learn something from my wife and, be a little bit sneaky to get it.
Yeah, you can get it. And, you shouldn't pass this along, but you will. And, yes, tell me, write me the message and we'll read it when we get there. And troopersjp, I'm the GM of this madness. You can find me on Saturday, not tomorrow, but the day after, the week after, Title Blades, which is, PB didn't say it, it is an RPG system by Monty Cook Games, which is not yet released. So if you want to like a sneak peek of a system that's coming out very soon, that's based on a very cool board game, it's pretty awesome. Go there next Saturday. It's a great cast. It's going to be very anime, and there'll be costumes. And you can also find me on a place I can't tell you about just yet, coming up the week after next, which will also be really exciting, but I can't tell you. But don't worry, it'll happen. And over on Other Doc's channel, I'm doing a very short 2-3 episode miniseries using Rosette Diceless, which is a 1970s gritty spy thing, because who doesn't love some spies? I don't think I'm gonna give the players an aspect as a present. That's just my guess. They get to do that. So thank you all for being here. You can find us we have a Patreon, which is at Academic Foxhole, which goes to help pay for the cast and pay for our art. Frithiel was here, and Frithiel has redone he does new graphics for us every season, and so we go and do all that goodness. That said, go and stretch, hydrate, give love to those who you love, and remember that all of these stories of resistance, right, are done by for the most part, regular people just like you and me who stood up against tyranny and overwhelming oppression and a lot of danger to themselves. People just stood up and they said, you know what, I'm going to do something, even if it's a little thing, to make the world a little bit better at great risk to themselves. So if you're feeling overwhelmed by all that is happening in the world, remember, there are people who did a lot with much little because they felt they needed to. So note that you can always do something as well. That said, thank you, everybody, and I will catch you on the flip side, and thank you all for being here, and thank you very much to my amazing cast. Thank you, and thank you to all the Patreons who support us, and everyone who gives us bits and tips. It allows me to pay the cast so we can be ethical. So thank you. Goodbye, everybody.